Hello ladies and gentlemen, this tutorial will show you how to start your cause and effect paper as well as write the introduction paragraph. So to begin with, we'll go ahead and call it cause effect paper and name our document so that we can find it. And then we will put your name, your teacher's name, the class, and the date. And today's date is the 18th of November 2014. Notice that the date goes ahead of the month in MLA format. Then I'll hit the enter key twice, and I want to center my title. So I'll go up here, center my title. And just like I used for my annotated bibliography, my title will be the research question that I've used throughout my process. So for instance, it might be, what are the causes of concussions in youth football? So there's my title. And now I'm going to write my introductory paragraph. There are three parts of the introduction. We'll talk about your hook, your context, and your thesis. So those are the three parts that we will use, and I'll talk about each one of those, and I'll write an example so you can kind of work from this example. So to begin with, your first part of your hook is going to use what's called an anecdote hook. Anecdote spelled like that. And an anecdote hook tells one person's story to illustrate the cause or effect. Okay, so that's what an anecdote hook is. We're going to use one story that we think is a good representation of the big picture. So for instance, if possible, you'll want to use a real person's story because that's going to be more meaningful and more realistic to your audience. So it might look something like this. Matt Jones, an 8th grader at Miller Middle School in Marshalltown, Iowa, sprinted down the sideline in his football game versus Waukee. He dove to catch the incoming pass, a perfect spiral from the quarterback. And for a brief moment was in his hands before a defensive back from Waukee we'll say pummeled him with a helmet to helmet collision. Okay. Now notice here I'm giving some good description in my hook as well as providing an example of maybe how a kid might get a concussion. You want to show either the cause or the effect at a personal level. And again, if you know that person and it's okay to use their name, go ahead and do it because that'll make it seem much more realistic for your reader. If it's a sensitive topic, maybe you change the name but tell a realistic story. So this is my hook, my anecdote hook. Now my next part, I want to go to the context, which is putting it in a bigger picture, kind of an idea. So I want to show how Matt Jones is illustrative of a bigger topic, which is concussions in youth sports. So now I'll move to the big picture. Football players all over the nation receive concussions in a similar way throughout the season. In fact, in the year 2009, when statistics were most recently available, 250,000 youth football players were treated in emergency room visits for head injuries and possible concussions. Okay, so now I've gone from Matt Jones, who is one person that we may know here at Miller Middle School, and I've gone to the year 2009 and the big picture, which is how this impacts not only people here in Iowa or here in Marshalltown, but people all over the country or maybe even all over the world. So 250,000 youth football players were treated in emergency room visits for head injuries and possible concussions. And I'll cite my source there, according to the New York Times. And since that's a publication, a newspaper, I need to italicize it. Okay, so now I've written my hook, and then here I've gone to my context, and the last part of my introduction that I need to write is my thesis. Okay, and the thesis for this paper is going to focus on either the three main causes, which I'll look at, or the three main effects, if your paper here says effects instead of causes. So my thesis might start something like this: the three major causes for concussions in youth football that players and coaches need to be aware of are, and now I can list those three and suggest my organization for the rest of the paper. So number one, I will say poor tackling techniques. Number two, old and out-of-date equipment, which will be my second big reason, big cause. And my third, and lack of awareness by participants. Okay, so to give you an idea here, this section right here is my hook, and I'm going to go ahead, you don't need to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and highlight that. We'll put that in yellow so that you can see there's the anecdote hook. And then here, I'll put this in a different color. We'll highlight that green. And now you can see I have my context. And finally, I'm going to highlight my thesis, and we'll put that in blue. So now you can see hook, context, thesis. So there's your introduction paragraph. If you have questions, please refer to this video as to what that might look like. Big ideas to remember: number one, start with the individual. Number two, take it to the big picture. Number three, end with your thesis, the three major causes or the three major effects that you're going to talk about in your paper.